My hour is not yet here. Jesus' mom said to him, "They're out of wine." Fill the water pots with water. But you've kept the good wine until now. He revealed his glory through this miracle. What's it got to do with you and me? Three days after calling Philip and Nathanael to follow him, there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and Jesus' mom was there at the wedding. And Jesus was invited, and his disciples too, to the wedding. And at the wedding, they ran out of wine. And Jesus' mom said to him, "They're out of wine." Jesus said, "Ma'am, what makes you think this is my concern? My hour is not yet here." His mom said to the servants, "Whatever he tells you to do, do it." Well, there were 6 water pots made out of stone. They were there for washing. The Jews, of course, were very much into ritualistic purifying of themselves. And so that's what these pots were there for. And each one of the pots would hold about 20 to 30 gallons of water apiece. There were 6 of them. And Jesus says to the servants, "Fill the water pots with water." And so they filled them all the way to the top. And he said, "All right, draw some out and take it to the governor of the feast." And so that's what they did. Well, when the governor of the feast tasted the water that was made wine, he didn't taste water, it was wine by the time it hit his lips. And he didn't know where it was from, although the servants knew where it was from. The governor of the feast called the groom, and he said, "Every man at the beginning of the party serves the best wine first. And then once everybody has had plenty to drink, then he brings out the cheap wine. But you've kept the good wine until now." And that's it. That's the story of the miracle. John continues in verse 11 of chapter 2 and says, "This beginning of miracles Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and he revealed his glory through this miracle. And his disciples believed on him." And after that, he went to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brothers and his disciples, and They stayed there a few days, and then the Jewish Passover was coming up, so Jesus went to Jerusalem. Great story. I love Bible stories. But what's it got to do with you and me? I want to give you 3 things that stand out from this little story real quickly, and then kind of give you an idea of what you need to do with not only this miracle, but all the miracles that we're going to be talking about over the next number of weeks and months. First in this story, I want you to notice the master. Up until this point, Jesus is just another guest at the wedding. In fact, in that region, because he was reared in that area of Israel, in that region, he wasn't anything other than the carpenter's son, or the carpenter. He was known as the carpenter. Of course, he's been baptized and he's called his disciples. 3 days has passed since he called Philip and Nathanael. But at this wedding, he's a nobody. He's just one of the guests. Until this happens. And suddenly the governor of the feast is not in charge. The groom's not in charge. Mary's not in charge. Jesus is in charge. He's the master. And so he is revealed. He's revealing himself, his glory, and that he takes over and simply gives instruction. He has a new relationship with his mother. I believe that's what's reflected in the King James. He says, "Woman, what have I to do with thee?" Very strange thing for him to say to his mom. But his relationship with his mom has suddenly changed. We see that in his ministry later on when his mom and his brothers come to see him and he's surrounded by a crowd and they say, "Hey, your mom's here." And he says, "Who is my mom? Who is my brothers? You, my followers. We are family." So we see the master. He addresses this issue of timing. He says, "My hour is not yet here." And yet he goes ahead and performs this miracle, and it seems that he is saying, all right, this is the beginning of the end. Once this ball gets rolling, now he's going to be famous. He's going to be known. We'll see that in the next miracle when we talk about it next week. And so it is the toppling of the first domino, and now the dominoes are falling, and it will result ultimately in his crucifixion. So we see the master, obviously, in this miracle. We see the miracle itself. There's some things that stand out. He used the water that would have been used for hand washing and turned it into wine. Not the drinking water, but the hand washing water. He made 180 gallons of wine. And it wasn't just any wine. It wasn't just Welch's grape juice. This guy who is the governor of the feast, it's his responsibility to make sure that the wine is the best wine. Says, man, this is some really good wine. And of course, Jesus would only do what is best. He would only turn the pots into wine once they're full, right? And he would only make the best wine. One thing I noticed about the miracle is there were a lot of people who benefited from this miracle who were completely ignorant. They had no idea what happened. The governor didn't know where the wine came from. The servants did. That's cool. You want to really get close to what God's doing? Serve him. You'll have a front row seat to his best actions. But the miracle itself is definitely worth our attention. There's some unique characteristics that should draw us in and cause us to worship God. And then we have, of course, the manifestation of his glory. The master, the miracle, and the manifestation. The disciples' faith, it says plainly in John 2, increased. Once they had seen him turn water into wine, they were already following him, but their faith increased. And that, of course, is one of the purposes of the miracles being performed, first of all, but being told to us in the Gospels. So I told you I was going to tell you what you need to do with this. There's really 3 things. You heard this story, you probably already knew it very well. So what are you supposed to do with it? Number 1, worship. That's what we're supposed to do. When we see God's glory manifested, we are to worship him. That's what he created us to do, was to love and worship him. And then trust him. Believe that the God who can turn water into wine can certainly handle any difficulty that you bring to him. But thirdly, now that you've focused on this miracle, to whom much is given, much is required. Get a vision for what great things God can do for you. Don't just bring him your problem, say, please solve this problem. How about once the problem is solved, now what positive thing can we do? What new territory can we conquer? Be inspired by this marvelous miracle at the marriage in Cana of Galilee, and ask God to do mighty miracles in your life. Physical, yes, but how about spiritual miracles today?